mentioned the concept of evil tonight. Twitter, most people would probably say, is a very nice company. Ev Williams, nicest guy you'd ever probably meet. But if you're Robert Scoble, you might say that suggested followers on Twitter is evil. They're unfairly singling out some people to get additional followers.
Yeah, but don't confuse jealousy with evil.
Yeah.
I'm not a suggested, person. I would love to.
You'd like to be a suggested
follower? I'd love to be. I can't understand why I'm not.
If you're listening now,
but
I wants to be suggested.
No, but I don't think it's because. Do you think Robert thinks Twitter is evil for not making him a suggested?
That's probably a little bit of a strong.
Dave Weiner does.
Dave Weiner definitely thinks that Twitter is evil for not having him be suggested.
Well, I could make the case that they have a very bad user interface design, because when you're a new Twitter sign-up person and they put that list up, and there's a button about 600 pixels wide that says next, and there's a little one that says skip this step.
Yeah.
So guess what? Everybody clicks, and
now
the next thing you know,
that's just smart.
Yeah, they're following Oprah for her 2 updates a year.
So here's the case. I'm pretty sure that it used to be the case that Dave Morin used to be a suggested follower on Twitter. He's now not a suggested follower.
Because he works for Facebook?
I don't know. I'm just wondering.
I think you're.
You don't buy that?
No, you're like. You're looking in this thing and you're seeing these tea leaves. It's just tea leaves, man.
You don't think that Facebook and Twitter are in competition?
They are, but I don't think that's why. I have a hard time believing that someone was so smart, so focused, and so clever as to say, we have to make Dave Morin no longer a suggested person because we're in competition, and the more followers he gets, it's the worst for us. I refuse to believe that line of reasoning went down. In fact, I will admit, if Facebook had that line of reasoning, I would be more impressed with Facebook. So, if that's true, tell me, because I want to be even more impressed.
Okay.
You're taking the 5th, huh?
He doesn't want to get fired. He's not fully vested yet.
Yeah. All right. How about Microsoft these days? I was actually surprised there were many hands that were going up about Microsoft being evil, because I would actually say I think they've had a little of the edge taken off lately. I don't think that they're as on top of their evil as they used to.
Well, you know what? I think a lot of that is because one of the smartest things that I think Microsoft has ever done is create the Mountain View campus. And at that Mountain View campus, which you can use that conference facility all the time. It's really cheap and it's really convenient. And it's a lovely thing, yeah. And so now, rather than think there's these evil people in Washington, now they're like, oh, these people in Mountain View, we're going to a conference there, and they're only charging us for food $20 a head. Life is good. So I think Daniel Lewin single-handedly is changing the impression of Microsoft in Silicon Valley, because now they're making sort of warm body contact. It's not just, oh, Bill Gates is plotting the end of freedom in Seattle.
I think Russ, do you have a comment about that?
Well, I would just say I think Microsoft is not good at the internet, and people don't even see them as a threat. That's the reason.
They still have more than 50% market share in browsers. I wouldn't say they're like crap.
That's an application, I'm talking about inside the browser. Most people here Facebook is not worried that Microsoft's suddenly going to understand community. The internet is about community, content, commerce, all things that Microsoft doesn't have in their kill zone. So I think that's why they don't fear them. And it's actually kind of sad. It used to be kind of cool. People were like, oh my God, Microsoft's coming into my space. And now people are like, Microsoft's coming into my space, who cares? If Microsoft said we're going to launch a Twitter clone, does anybody here think that they would have any chance of competing against Twitter?
How about if they launch a search engine?
Nobody.
So what are your thoughts on Bing then?
I think Microsoft's search was probably a 2 out of 10, and overnight they went to an 8 out of 10, which means they're as good as Yahoo and 1 point or 2 points behind Google. So it was amazing how much they caught up with Yahoo, and maybe slightly better than Yahoo, but I don't think that people are going to switch off Google because it's just as good. It's as good, and as good's not enough. You need to have 50% better for people to switch.
Guy, do you have any opinions about Bing? Do you think that was worth the effort or not worth the effort?
Well, I've used it. I think it has very good results.
Yeah.
I, at one point, made it a default, and then I upgraded, I don't know what happened, so it's no longer my default browser. I will tell you, though, that one of the things I do, I'm on a bunch of marketing email lists, and they send me this HTML story that I think is good, so I want to tweet it. And so I can't tweet, obviously, an email. I have to find a link for that story. So you put in the exact title of the story. And if you put it in Bing versus Google, Google always finds the link, and Bing often doesn't. So that's just this one particular quirk I have in how I search, that Bing just doesn't cut it for me for some reason.
Okay. Well, I'd like to throw it up. There's a few questions here. Ross, do you have one to start?
So, Guy made this point about Microsoft has a campus here and it's open a little bit more and stuff like that. Apple and Google are the most closed corporate cultures in recent memory whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it might be the only reason that we're having this conversation whatsoever. And so what do we do about it to change them? Because otherwise, I don't know, I mean, you know, SharePoint's still like as evil as Microsoft gets, and it's probably not on Jason's radar.
You wouldn't happen to be competing with SharePoint, would you?
I just know too much. But like honestly, how much does this conversation have to do about the fact that these companies are very closed, engineering driven, don't engage in the outside world, don't engage?
So your point is, I think, that Google and Apple share a similarity around lack of transparency that perhaps creates a little animosity. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think that they're closed cultures that don't, I mean, I think everyone's agree that Apple is. What about Google? What do you think?
I think Google is quirky more than closed. They're kind of nerdy, and so they don't think to invite you over to lunch or to work with you. I mean, they're just odd people, no offense.
I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of lunches at Google.
Well, that's my point. Like, anytime I email folks over there, they're like, yeah, come by the campus. And then you have like an odd discussion with somebody who's a little socially off. No, I'm just kidding. No, listen. When you're that big and you're that busy making tons of money from this huge cash-making machine, they really don't have anything to do with social text or Mahalo or Alltop. There's nothing they can do with us. All they can do with us is say, is Google Analytics working well for you? Would you like to see the new features? How is AdSense doing? Oh, good. Would you like to be part of this beta test? I mean, for 2 companies in a row, I go to Google every 6 months. I meet with the same 8 people. And it's the same conversation over and over again. We should totally do stuff together. And I say, okay, great. What would you like to do together? And I said, we got a new thing coming out for AdSense. It's ads for RSS. Do you want to be the first user? Okay. And that's my relationship with them. They provide tools. We use them. And then I say, can you give us a better percentage on our AdSense? And they go, no, we give everybody the same. And then I go, okay. And that's it. If some site, the search goes down, something's wrong with my search, my Google traffic dropped in half, maybe can somebody look into it or something. I mean, they don't really have much to talk about. And Microsoft, like I said before, if you're in the application business, yes, you should be scared shitless of Microsoft. They're very good at making software. They're very good at locking people into it and getting corporate customers. They suck at everything else. I mean, it's just the bottom line.
Guy, do you want to weigh in on any of that?
Well,
Are Google people strange?
Are Google people, I thought we were talking about Google people closed.
I really do wish that Apple were more physically open, and that there was an Apple facility that people could use, and it would be, sort of like the Microsoft campus. If Apple had a conference center where people could use it,
physical is just a metaphor, right?
Well, it is a physical manifestation of a metaphor. Yes. So maybe Dan O'Lewin is the only open guy in Microsoft, and it's all an illusion. But my impression is that I have to tell you, in all the dealings that I've had with Microsoft people, I've never thought they were evil. They were really friendly. They were efficient, more efficient than Apple people, and they didn't carry on with this air of superiority. And so, what can I say? I mean, but I agree. I think, why not open up that campus a little more? Name one Apple employee who's a blogger.
No, they're not allowed to.
How bizarre is that?
It's very strange.
How bizarre is that?
Dan Lyons, I believe, is the only Apple.
Yeah, Dan Lyons.
Well, I mean, this does bring up a point, though. I think PR does seem to control a little bit of the corporate culture in some of those companies, or maybe it's the culture that drives PR. Guy, I mean, there's been a lot of controversy over the state of Steve Jobs' health and whether Apple PR was basically doing correct by shareholders. In fact, whether they're even doing something legal and not necessarily being fully disclosed about what's going on.
Well, first of all, I don't want you to think that it was their decision to decide what to tell the world about Steve's health.
Okay.
I have to tell you, my attitude on that whole Steve's health thing is that I think Steve Jobs has done more for the employees, shareholders, and customers of Apple Computer than probably any other CEO for any other company in the history of man. And if he's got a serious medical disease and he wants to handle it privately, God bless him, we should leave him alone. That's my attitude.
I agree.
Okay.
I just want to say, I think the journalists and the bloggers, like, getting obsessed about his health issue is just disgusting to me. And if you don't give people a little privacy in their lives during their darkest moments, their most challenging moments, why is anybody going to choose to lead these companies? It's not worth it. Just because you're a shareholder doesn't mean you have the right to know my health. The Mahalo shareholders don't get to know my health, and they shouldn't. And if they don't like it, then sell your shares.
Not a public company.
Of course, but even as a public company, if you don't like it, if you don't like the fact that he wants some privacy, sell your Apple shares. And then shut up.
Okay, I'll disagree with both of you on this one. I do think that they were not disclosing a material fact that as a shareholder has a direct impact on the course of the business of the company. It's not a privacy issue. It's a multi-hundred-billion-dollar business, and his death would have a tremendous impact, even a severe health impact. And they were obviously hiding something that had potential life or death situation on that. Just my opinion, anyway. Another question, Leonard.
So, if I want to put a link, Jason, on your site, to my site, and I want you to share your juice, your link juice with me, are you going to put a no-follow link on there, or are you going to give me your juice from your site to mine? Is that what I'm saying?
I think the way it works is when the community picks links, they are followed, and when the people in the community don't do it and it's a machine, it's unfollowed. So it wouldn't be up to me, it would be up to the community, and the person who manages each individual page. We'll leave it up to them. And then they have to have a certain authority to do that. And actually the way we're going to do it later on is people who have a certain level, like they're a certain level of trust, they've been with the system for 6 months or 12 months, they'll have followed links. Anybody who's under 12 months in the system will have no follow links. So basically it keeps the spammers away, which I think would be a better compromise than what Wikipedia did, which is make them all no follow. But when you start to have a lot of traffic the way we do now, it is an issue because you want people to get rewarded if it's a good site and it was hand selected, but you don't want spammers coming in. So the no follow issue is pretty significant, and I think we put a lot of thought into it and care into it.
Steve?
So is Apple encouraging its developers to be evil because their search and discovery is so fucking awful that you have to pump up your ratings and your reviews, you have to do paid installs and everything else to get in the top 25 list so that people will find you?
So I believe the question is, did Apple design a relatively brain-dead popularity and visibility process for iPhone apps, roughly speaking? The question is whether that's evil or not smart.
This is called Kawasaki's razor. Always assume it's a
Stupidity. Or laziness. Laziness, if
or
it's guy count.
incompetence, or there's a real reason. I don't. Apple's not evil. I don't. Apple's not evil. It's not. There's not an evil bone in Steve Wozniak's body. I know that for sure.
That's absolutely sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's try. Let's take one more. Enrique, you got to go. Oh, Josh Ellman, Facebook on the spot.
So a lot of people talk about it's evil to do things to your users, like pre-checking everybody when you go through one of those flows where you enter your email address and you inadvertently spam all your friends. And companies will say, hey, but look at all the traffic you get to me. A lot of companies will do this when they're really small, and then they'll wash their hands when they get big.
Some company like Plaxo. Yes.
Thank you, yes. Where does this fall on the evil scale? And this is really like, we talk about treating other businesses. This is actually really how you treat your users.
So I guess the general question is, would you like to add all your friends? Is that evil or not in the initial sign-in flow?
Well, I think it's...
How big is the button?
Yeah. I think his point is a lot of companies will do anything to get to the point of critical mass, and then once they're at critical mass, then they'll start behaving themselves. And I've seen this all the time. I mean, there was one of these document management online sites that was doing all kinds of crazy SEO nonsense. The traffic was like absurdly awesome, and TechCrunch was writing about it, and then they're like, oh my God, we're doing all this really spammy SEO, content stealing stuff. Let's stop it. I'm not going to say which company it is. And then they stopped it, and they lost like 10, 15 million uniques. It was still impressive because there were over 20. But I think it's not a good thing to do because you taint yourself.
The question you're referring to is Script.
I don't know the name of it. I don't. It's a document management company. There are only two. But anyway, if you did a search for Playboy on it, you would find every issue of Playboy, and I don't think they got on there by accident because there's all these users who all of a sudden wanted to upload all these pornographic images and whatever was in Google's Trends Top 100. So yeah, don't do that stuff because you look stupid. But it personally frustrates me because I watch people do it, and then they're like, "Oh my God, our traffic is amazing," and it's like, "Yeah, but you're doing pop unders or something like that." But the problem with doing that stuff, and when we were at Weblogs Inc., we had a lot of opportunities to do that kind of stuff. And what I always told my guys was, "Listen, every minute you spend trying to game the system is a minute you're not spending making a better Engadget Autoblog joystick, a better product that people love. Let's go with the slow embers brand building strategy, which in my estimation was put a little bit of kindling there, put a bigger stick, and just burn it until it gets really hot, and then it will eventually become a blaze. Don't pour gasoline on logs." And that's what these SEO tricks or bullshit, sign up stuff. What's that?
What about YouTube?
Oh, that's why I wrote the post that I thought YouTube was bullshit. I think they used copyright infringement to build their business. I do think, though, they stopped and they did exactly what you're saying. Like, let's do anything it takes to get there. Nobody remembers how you got there. All they remember is the exit. So it's a perfect example.
So I do have to mention on that point, because I defended YouTube and you put my name in the title of one of your rebuttal headline posts.
What did I say?
One of my biggest traffic days ever.
Yeah.
Not being facetious, it kind of matters, what's the UI? And when my wife signed up for Facebook, she didn't realize that she was sending out an email to people that she had no desire to ever connect with again. And
that's what she told you.
yeah, so I think you were in her just.
True, I was.
Keep it clean, guys.
Yeah, so,
tell her I said hi.
I think it's a question of degrees. However, having said that, I do understand that, as a startup entrepreneur, I would not go over the bounds of ethics, but in a sense, you have to do what you have to do. Let me give you an example. I have figured out, using various analytics, that I can tweet the same thing 3 times every 8 hours, every 8 hours, 3 times, and I'll get 500 clicks every time. So sometimes I do that to promote Alltop. So is that evil? Some people would say I'm now spamming them. Of course, they're following me voluntarily, but besides that point, so that's kind of like pushing it, right? I retweet something 3 times on purpose because I know 500 every time. If I saw that it was 500, 200, 0, obviously I wouldn't do it. If I have 67,000 followers, and every day I get 2 or 3 complaints about people that I'm a spammer, I promote Alltop too much, or whatever. And I think that's just the cost of doing business. That if 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 people unfollow me every day because of that, on the other hand, I'm driving traffic to Alltop. I have to do it. And I can't make everybody happy. So this theory that if 10 people say, they're going to unfollow you, really it's 100 because the other 90 don't want to say anything. I look at it as 10 people unfollow me per day. I have 167,000 people. That's going to take 16,700 days. And by then, Alltop will either be successful or a failure. I have to do that, right or wrong. And sometimes, you may have your personal Outlook or Entourage database of 10,000 email contacts that you've made over 30 years. And so when you're about to announce your product, Posters has new themes or something like that, should you send 10,000 emails to people? I would say yes. Absolutely, I would say yes.
Well, in that case, I think Isaac Saldana, are you in the audience? SendGrid is a product that deals with email deliverability. I think you might need that very soon, Guy.
Why?
All right, unless there's any other questions, I'd like to dive into the discussion. Moderators, you definitely have lots of evil questions to cover with your tables. We'll go for about 40 minutes and try and wrap up by 9 o'clock. Would love to thank Guy and Jason for being very evil, and for participating with my questions. Thank you guys a lot for coming.
Thanks for having us. Good job. Good job, man.
We'll declare the draw.